get going into it. Everybody have the Bible open, Proverbs 31:25. It's basically going to talk a little bit about a virtuous woman.
Hallelujah.
All right. You ready? Click onto the logo that just says the Lord's House. All right, everybody got it? Okay. Father, we just thank you once again for the opportunity to come before your throne. Let's thank you for those things that you have given unto us. We pray that you open our eyes that we may see, our ears that we may hear, our heart that we may obtain, and more importantly, give us a voice that we may share. In the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. All right, so we're going to be reading out of Proverbs 31 real quickly just to open up. Of course, a couple of weeks ago was Mother's Day, and we're just following up with that. I just want to talk about a virtuous woman. It says in 31, starting in verse 25, I'm going to start with there. It says, "Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in the time to come. She opened her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuous, but thou excellence them all." "Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates." Amen. Now with that, like I said, we're going to kind of follow up a couple weeks in Mother's Day, and we talked about different women, and usually I do this in October. I kind of use different women for breast cancer awareness, but I wanted to do it this month of May because of Mother's Day and just some other stuff going on in our deal. We tend to forget in the Bible, we love the women in the Bible that had an impact on life, or on someone's life. And today I want to talk about Abigail. And it's really amazing because the story of Abigail is really cool because how she affects David. And with that being said, is we see that David is running, and I'm going to turn it real quickly. We're going to, maybe I can turn here if I can get to it. Sorry about that. We see that David he's just got out of the cave. He just had a chance to kill Saul, and he did. Cut off a piece of his garment while Saul was using the restroom in that story. And so we see that he just got finished doing something to God. He couldn't touch the anointing, and he went down into the valley. Anyway, could somebody turn that down a little bit for me, please? So let's start reading in chapter 25, verse 25. And it says, "Samuel died, the prophet Samuel died. All of Israel were gathered together and laminated him and buried him in the house of Ramah. And David rose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in Moab whose possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the man's name, the name of his wife Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and of beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb." Now, the reason I want to bring that up is we see the difference. She was basically carrying her into what we would call a butthole, I guess you would say. He was a jerk. And she was beautiful. So when we get into the story, I want us to realize this doesn't just affect Abigail. I want us to see how she affects David. Because, see, when we go through life and we see things in our own lives, we have this path that we go, and we all know that David had a path of being the king. But Saul was in the way, but he didn't want to just attack God's anointed, as he said all the way through. Just like we said, when you read in Samuel 24, we see that he had a chance to do that. He actually had a chance numerous times, but he didn't. But here we're going to get into a point of David's life where we see someone makes him angry. And so he's going to go take out his anger on this person. And so we read in verses 4 through 8 that we see that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So in other words, he took them all back out into his sheepfolds and into his barns to shear them. But before that, they were in the wilderness. And I want to just read real quickly. And it said, David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent 10 young men. And David said unto the young men, Get up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. In verse 6 he says, And thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thy house, and peace be unto thou hast. thou hast. I'm sorry. So then we read, and then he sends them on. And of course we realize that Christ said that once in Luke 10:5-7. He says, And whosoever's house ye enter, first say, Peace be to this house. And if the Son of Peace be there, your peace shall rest upon it. If not, it shall return to you again, and in the same house remain eating and drinking such things as thou give, for the laborer is worthy of his hire. Go from house to house. So it's very important that we go into a house that's blessed. But what I want to look at, I'm going to kind of read, because I read slow, so I'm going to kind of paraphrase it. What he did is he sent his young men. He basically told Nabal that the young men went to Nabal and said, Hey, we've been taking care of your men out in the wilderness, because they guarded them, because they were camped out there anyway. So they kept anybody from coming stealing the sheep or armies coming or whatever. So David's men kind of hung out with them and protected them. So when they went to Nabal's house to kind of say, Hey, basically return the favor, return the blessing. Well, we read a little bit, he's like, No, I don't know you. I don't know David. And it's kind of funny because if you read, he says, I don't know who's this David, the son of Jesse. So he knew about him. But he's like, who is this guy? I don't know him, I don't know you. Why am I going to share my goodness with you? So of course, word gets back to David. And I love this part right here, because this is just a man right here. He says it in verse 13. So we see that the young men that went, they come back and they tell David, let's start at 6, and it says, So David's young men turned their way and went again and came and told him all those things that Nabal said, which wasn't good things. And David said unto his men, Gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. And David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abide by the stuff. So I really like that, because we know what gird up means. Remember, we said that's where you just roll your pants up and you put them up and I'm ready to go with it. But what is funny is David, just before this, did not attack the king because he was anointed. So he was in God's will. He was blessed because he didn't kill Saul. But now, some dude just insulted him. And he's going down to take care of business. And it's really wild is because he ain't just going to step. He said, we're going to go down. We're going to read a little bit farther on where he says he's going to kill everybody that pisses against the wall. Which means that every man that's standing is going to die. If you stand up and pee, you're going to die. So it's really funny is because he's this anointed man. He knows his deal, but he's going to take off because this guy just insulted him. So he takes off and goes, but what is cool is we read 14, it says, And the young men came to Abigail, Nabal's wife, and behold, David sent messengers. And so they tell her the story. So the young men go to Abigail, and they say, Hey, we don't need to complain, but your husband's about to get us all killed.
Yeah.
He went down, and David's been protecting us, and he goes to Nabal. Nabal tells him basically, where the sun don't shine kind of thing. And so she's like, do what?
Yeah.
And she's like, huh? And so we go on, and so we see her say, oh my God, he's going to come and kill us all. So we read a little bit, I'm going to read just quickly out of verse 18, and it says, Then Abigail made haste and took 200 bowls and 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep, ready dressed, and 5 measures of partridge, corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on an ass's. And she, until her servants, Go on before me, behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that they came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Now, this is so cool right here because we jump down to verse 22. And he said, and David had all his men, and it said in 22, it says, and so more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all that pertain of him by the morning light, any that pisseth against the wall. In other words, he's telling her, I'm going to kill everybody. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lightened off the ass, and fell before David on her face, and bowed herself unto the ground, and fell at his feet, and said upon him, My Lord, upon me let this iniquity be, and let thy handmaiden, I pray thee, speak in thy audience, and hear of the words of thy handmaiden. Let not my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man, Bella, even Nabal, for as he is named, so is he. Nabal is the name, and the folly is with him. But I, thy handmaiden, saw not the young men, O my Lord, whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing thee, Lord, hath withheld thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thy own hand. Now let thy enemies and they that seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thy handmaiden hath brought unto my Lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. So we see that she acted quickly. She hasted, she took everything, she met him. She didn't even wait for him to get there. She went out and met him. Basically said it before him, said, Here, David, I'm sorry for my husband, and let his sin, his iniquity fall upon me, because he's a goofy guy, and I'm going to do it. And so she falls upon David's feet, and she begs him, and she says, let the blessings fall. Let me bless you, David. Now, what is so cool about what we're going to read in a minute is how she speaks to David, and she lets David know what he's doing. See, because we see that David, he's going there only because he's mad. It has nothing to do with God sending him to conquer that land. It has nothing to do with him that, he's supposed to take over Nabal's sheep and he's got to feed us. No, it's because David got mad because Nabal ditched him, in a sense, disrespected him. So we see that God sent this woman not only to save her household, but in a sense, save David. See, that's what we have to see in this, is that God sent her to stop David. See, because in the Bible, murder is a sin. Theoretically, what David was fixing to do, he was going to murder a whole bunch of people just because he got mad at one man. Just right after, he was obedient and didn't kill the king because he didn't want to touch the one. So you see where I'm going with this? We sometimes we're clicking along and we're doing God's will. Everything's rolling. We're like, oh yeah, man, I'm talking, I'm walking the walk, and I'm witnessing to everybody. Look at all these people I got saved, and somebody pulls out in front of you. And it's like, pull over, I'll show you. So we just automatically lose it. And that's what God's showing us in this. Sometimes it takes somebody to come and say, hey, wait a minute, Timmy, calm down. You don't need to be stupid. And that's what she's doing. See, but she's not only doing that, she's saving her household too. She's saving what she needs in her life, and her husband, even though he is, as the word says, in folly. But I want us to see that very important this morning, is that she helped David, and David realizes it. And that's the other part of this that we have to understand, is we have to realize when God's sending us someone to help us, to keep us from temptation, to keep us from going the wrong way, or going, even if it's the way we think we're supposed to be going, but God comes and stops us. And that's what she did. That's what God did. And it says in verse 28, it says, And I pray thee forgive the trespasses of thy handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all these days. Now she's talking about David. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee, and to seek thy soul. But the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bottle of life, in the Lord thy God, and the souls of thy enemies, them shall he sling out, as out of the middle of the sling. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord shall have done to the Lord, my Lord, according to all the good that he hath spoken concerning thee, and it shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel, that this shall be no grieving unto thee, nor offense of the heart unto my Lord, either that thou hast shed blood costlessly, or that my Lord hath avenged himself, but when the Lord shall have dwelt well with my Lord, then remember thy handmaid. Now this scripture right here is it's prophetic. She's basically saying, I know I kind of fumbled at reading it, but what she's basically saying is, don't come here. You fight the battles of the Lord. You're a man of God. You fight the battles that God has set before you. Don't come here on your own anger. Don't come here and kill somebody for no cause. Because what it's going to do is when you become king, see, she knows who he is. So she's saying, when you become king, this is something everybody's going to be able to say bad against you. This is something that everybody's going to say, oh yeah, he is King David. But remember when he went down and killed Nabal for no reason, just because he got mad? Will he do that to us? Will he conquer us because he gets mad at us? Then will he be a righteous king? So we have to see that she's telling him, so David, see, this is not right now. This is going to hurt you later on. And then she says, let God, you know that God fights your battles. And we know in Deuteronomy it says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And David knows this. So why is he fighting a battle when his enemies are coming against David? And David's, so she's telling him, calm down a little bit, David. See who you are. Your kingdom, your kingship is more important than you beating this guy up and killing everybody. And then what is really cool is when you read a little bit farther on, she says, now, when God does punish your enemy, which she knows that God's going to get a hold of Nabal because Nabal spoke out against David, remember me. So when God kills my husband, don't forget me. So see, in a way, she's prophesied because she knows God's going to take care of Nabal. She knew that when she left. So what I'm saying is, see, we have to get into the position. Whether we're Abigail and we're trying to stop someone from derailing their ministry or derailing their life or getting wrapped up in something they shouldn't get wrapped up in, or we're the ones getting wrapped up into something God sends an Abigail to us. See, we have to get into that position that I'm not too proud that I can stop and say, wait, did God send you? See, because we get so wrapped up in this judgment thing, thou shalt not judge, and don't judge me, don't judge me. Well, sometimes we need to be judged. Sometimes we need someone to stop us and say, Tim, you don't go over there, man. You don't need to be there. But a lot of times we let this self get in the way, and we let our own hearts and we let our own pride, just like he did. He girded up everybody. He said, we're going to go kill everybody. He said, you can't talk to me like that. I'm David. And so we do that. That pride jumps up in us. Whether it's in that we want to beat somebody up or we just don't want to talk to them, whatever it is, we get wrapped up into that. And sometimes God sends an Abigail. And then sometimes we are that Abigail. Sometimes God sends us, but if we're not bold enough like she is, see, she knew from the very beginning that this is trouble. It's not only that he's going to come and kill everybody and I'm going to lose everything I have, but it's going to hurt him. And so we read what David said, and this is so cool right here. And David said unto Abigail, blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. And blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou, which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with my own hand. For in every deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hast hasted and come to me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light in any that pisseth against the wall. And David received her hand, that which she had brought him, and said unto her, Go up in peace to thy house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person. See, and that's when we hear about God, David being the man after God's own heart, that's it. Because he's man enough to know that the Lord sent you here. See, because David, like I said, he was mad. We read it, and you can see it even right here. He even says it, hey, I was going to do this. It's all waiting. It ain't got nothing to do with the Lord. Like my mama used to say, we let Jesus out at the door. We're going to forget our religion for a second, and we're going to take care of this. And that's what he's saying, is that we have to accept it. And I know, and it's hard for me, and it's hard for all of us to accept someone coming to us and saying, hey, Timmy, you don't need to go there. You don't need to let that happen or this. And in the same way, if I see something going on, I need to be that Abigail to go and say, hey, this, you don't really need to put yourself in that position. Just let it go. Just go on home, But what was so cool about it is David realized it. Abigail realized it. And like I said, she spoke. She knew who he was. And so we go on knowing God sent them there. See, and that's what's so important, is that he realized that God sent her for him. See, and that's something special all in itself, is that God cared enough for David to send someone to stop him from doing wrong. And he does that in our lives. He does it when we may think it's all going to be good. It makes me happy. It's fun. I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden we realize that, no, this is not where God, he sent someone to talk to us, or something in our way, or whatever it may be. But we have to realize that God sent it. It's like David said, God sent you this day to stop me from being an idiot. And sometimes that's what we need. We need God to send someone to keep us from being that idiot. And that's what I wanted to get to this morning. I want us to see that. I want us to see that this is and when we see what type of woman she is, they write so much about Abigail. And before I close, I want to just kind of touch base on it, because it was kind of neat on a little study. It says that Abigail, of course, we know that it says her name means my father's joy, and that she was a very intelligent, beautiful woman. In the Talmud, which is the Jews' text, she is regarded as one of the, it's like an oral Torah, and 7 female prophets. She has a sense of drift of history, and more from intelligence rather than revelation. And it says that she is among the 4 most beautiful women in the world, along with Rahab, Sarah, and Esther. And that she is viewed in literature and quotes. They quote her. They even compare her to what a woman should be. And she's like one of the 100 or 1,000 women, notable women in history. But what is so cool about it is, like I said, is that we realize that God sent her for a reason. And then when you finish this, we see in verse 36, it says, And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of king. And Nabal's heart was merry with him, for he was very drunken, wherefore she told him nothing less or more until the morning light. So here this guy is. This shows you how just oblivious of what's going on in life. He's having a party, getting all drunk up, when he was fixing to be everything he owned, be gone. And we see that in people's lives. But she came back, and this shows you how smart she was too. And this is why I wanted to bring this little bit up. Is she came home after saving everybody. It's not just her household, but saving David's household. And she came home, and he's all drunk up, partying. And she walks in the door, and I could just see it. She just walked in the door, and like, look at this dude. He's got to be. I'm not even dealing with it today. I'm going to sleep. I will deal with it in the morning. But what is cool about it, too, is that she did it knowing that it was going to be she would have to be arguing with him. So sometimes it's just nice to keep your mouth shut, go to bed, and wait till the morning. Just let it pass. It's okay. Now, Everybody knows me, I'm not one of them kind of people. I probably would have gotten a fist fight or something. But anyway, we see that what Abigail had said about remembering your handmaid, it says but in 37 it says, but it came to pass in the morning when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. Now some people believe that he had a stroke, or that he just, I've heard a lot of different commentary about it. I just think that God just was dealing with him. And it came to pass about 10 days after that, the Lord smote Nabal, that he died. So that goes back to what she had said to David. Don't do this because God's going to take care of it. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And so she knew that God would take care of it. And then we read a little bit farther on where God sent word to David got word that he had died and she was alone, so he went down.
He married her.
He married her right away. Right away. Didn't take him no time at all. And then we read about Abigail. She went everywhere with him. As he married another, but as he traveled, and she went with him. And she stayed by his side, and they had a son together. Now, I didn't get a whole lot of reading on the son, Shelah, I guess is how you say it, but it's basically Daniel. But it doesn't have a lot of scripture, but a lot of writings says that he was as Esau. Oh Lord have mercy. Anyway, in other words, he was gone. He was a righteous man. He did nothing wrong. But what it tells us is that when we're obedient to God, even if it's to the point of stopping someone, God's going to bless it. Or if we're the one that needs someone to stop us, God's going to bless us. See, because we have to get to the point in our lives that it's not about us. See, just like Abigail told David, David, this ain't about you, man. This is about your kingdom. Because she knew he was going to be king. And she was like, there's going to be a day. You don't want this to be brought back up. You don't want people to remember that you got mad and just went and killed everybody. You want people to know who you were as a king, as a good king. And that's like with us. You know, we have to get to the point is that we want people to remember the goodness in us, what God has done for us. You know, and I say this all the time. If we share every time God does something blessed in our lives, then it's a domino effect. It just affects somebody else. And it's the same way if you do something wrong. What is that old saying? It takes 10 attaboys for one old, word. I almost said it, God help me. But anyway, but a mistake we make. So we have to so we see that in our lives, that God puts things in our lives to stop us from being who we are. You know what I'm saying? And that's what he did here with David, and he did with Abigail. And so we see that he was tempted. Not in temptation that most people think David coming down. No, he was tempted because God was showing him in a test of, hey, you can overcome this. And when we get in our lives and we're clicking along and everything's going good, and all of a sudden, something just jumps right out in front of us. We have to take that moment and see what God's doing. Because if not, if we go to haste and we get hasty in what we do, then we're not going to allow God to move in it. And we're not going to allow ourselves to accept that Abigail coming to us and telling us, hey, don't do this. Here's everything, but don't do this today. Because God's going to take care of him. And when God takes care of him, you remember me. And that's what God's telling us, is that he's always going to be there. And if we follow his direction, and we follow the times that he stops us, or he sends someone, then we're always going to be on that right path. Now see, David had the choice. He had the choice to say, yeah, that's all sweet, girlie. I'll see you in a little bit. I'll be right back. But he didn't. He realized what God was doing in his life.
Recognize the voice of God.
Yes, he did. That's where we have to be. Is know the voice of the Lord. Whether it be in our own heads, it be someone be sent to us. See, because that's the pride gets in the way, and that's what sometimes we get cocky and say, well, I'm a man of God. Why is he talking to you? If he wants to talk to me, then he talk to me. And I've heard people say that. But if we get to that point, then we won't know when God sends Abigail. We won't know it. And then our arrogance and our boldness goes. And that's what I'm trying to say, and that's what the Lord's showing us. Is she was a blessed woman because she was obedient. See, because like David said, I know the God of Israel sent you today. And that's what we have to realize.
Hallelujah.
That God of Israel will send them today if we need Him. But we have to be at that point in our lives that we're going to say, okay, God, and then go back to whatever we were doing. See, that's what God wants to share with us this morning. I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said, I kind of got off a little bit, but I want us to see where God's moving in our lives, because there's going to be, as we keep saying, something's going to happen. Something great's coming. But we have to be in that position to where we know that the Lord of Israel sent him. Anyway, that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed it. And